YandR Weekly Spoilers December 8th to 12th. Audra strikes back, Kyle makes a move, launch party kicks off. The Young and the Restless spoilers for the week of December 8th indicate that Audra Charles, Zalikia Silver, is ready to strike back at Claire Newman, Haley Aaron. Kyle Abbott, Michael Mealer, makes a move. The Abbott Communications launch party finally kicks off. Audra Charles strikes back. Audra may be ready to strike out at Claire after she pushes her too far. Claire knows that Audra is a schemer, and she best hopes she is prepared to handle her. Claire has a rough background as well, and could be able to hold her own with Audra. Claire was kept away from most people by Aunt Jordan, Colleen Zenk, but Claire may be able to hold her own. Victor Newman, Eric Braden, has made his way to Los Angeles to assist Nick Newman, Joshua Morrow, and Sharon Newman, Sharon Case, with Matt Clark, Roger Howarth. Hopefully, with Victor gone, Jack Abbott, Peter Bergman, we'll have time to get everything that can be breached at Jabot offline to protect it from the AI program Victor plans to attack with. Kyle Abbott's risky move. Kyle is about to make a risky move and helps Diane Abbott, Susan Walters, go after Victor. Diane is determined to see Victor behind bars, but we are talking about Claire's grandfather, the man who has changed sides and is Kyle's champion. Kyle may find out that something has changed for Claire, and this move could certainly blow that for him. Michael Baldwin, Christian LeBlanc, has a huge surprise for Lauren Fenmore Baldwin, Tracy E. Bregman. That should make her day. Lauren and Michael have reached their 20th anniversary. Their anniversary will be seen in a standalone episode on December 9th. Lily Winters mulls over her feelings. Lily Winters, Crystal Khalil, will take the time to mull over her real feelings for Kane Ashby, Billy Flynn. Kane came to Genoa City to win Lily back, but she has shot him down so far. Now that Kane is with Phyllis Summers, Michelle Stafford, will Lily realize that she wants Kane back despite the AI program issues? Phyllis is really into Kane, but she has also stolen the AI program and sold it to Victor. Kane knows this, but Phyllis refuses to admit to the truth. Kane really doesn't know what to expect from Phyllis, but he seems poised to strike back and betray her if he learns that truth. Will Phyllis come clean in the end, or will she keep up this farce for as long as she can? The Abbott Communications launch party finally happens despite Victor's attempt to block it. Can this push this launch through without any Newman interference? Come here for all things YandR. Check back often for the Young and the Restless news, spoilers, and updates. The city of Genoa City was buzzing with anticipation, as the week promised nothing short of drama, scheming, and high-stakes moves. At the center of the storm was none other than Audra, whose fiery determination had never been stronger. After weeks of being underestimated and sidelined, Audra was ready to strike back, and she had just the plan to turn the tables on everyone who doubted her. The morning started with a flurry of messages on her phone. Audra scrolled through her notifications, taking note of every whisper, every sly comment that had been thrown her way. It was clear. The boardroom wasn't ready for her. And yet, that was precisely why she needed to make her move today. Her first stop was Crimson Lights, the high-end coffee shop where she often strategized. Sitting in a corner booth, she laid out her plan on her laptop. Every detail had to be perfect, every word, every gesture. She had learned the hard way that in Genoa City, a single misstep could undo months of effort. But Audra wasn't in the business of missteps anymore. Today, she was in control. Meanwhile, across town, Kyle Abbott had been quietly plotting his own maneuver. The Abbott legacy was complex, but Kyle had always managed to find a way to carve his path. His target? A new business partnership that could secure his foothold in the company while simultaneously shaking up his rivals. He knew it wouldn't be easy, especially with his recent conflicts with other power players, but that didn't deter him. Kyle thrived on challenges. As Audra finalized her notes, she received an unexpected text from Kyle. "Meet me at the launch party tonight. We need to talk. It's time." Audra's heart skipped a beat. Not from surprise, but from the possibilities that this meeting could unlock. Was Kyle seeking alliance or confrontation? In Genoa City, it was always both. By late afternoon, the city skyline was bathed in gold, signaling the approach of evening festivities. The much-anticipated launch party for Newman Enterprises' latest project was set to kick off, promising a gathering of the city's elite. Celebrities, executives, and socialites alike were set to mingle, and it was the perfect stage for Audra's calculated strike, and for Kyle to make his move. Audra arrived at the venue first, dressed to impress in a sleek, emerald green dress that commanded attention. Every detail was meticulous, from her hair to her heels, exuding confidence and control. She glanced around, spotting familiar faces, some friendly, some not. She reminded herself that tonight wasn't about making friends, it was about reclaiming power. Kyle arrived shortly after, wearing his signature tailored suit. He moved through the crowd with purpose, scanning the room until his eyes landed on Audra. Their connection was electric, a blend of mutual respect and unspoken challenge. Kyle approached, a half-smile playing on his lips. "Ready to shake things up?" he asked, his tone teasing but sharp. Audra returned his smile, but her eyes were steely. "You have no idea." Their conversation was interrupted by the launch party's official unveiling. Guests turned their attention to the stage, where a grand display revealed Newman Enterprises' latest innovation, a revolutionary tech platform set to dominate the market. Cameras flashed, champagne glasses clinked, and the energy in the room reached a fever pitch. But amidst the celebration, Audra was already executing her plan. She had gathered intelligence over the past few weeks, using it to expose a rival's shady dealings. Quietly, she slipped documents into her handbag, ensuring she had leverage at the right moment. This wasn't about making a scene, it was about delivering a message, subtle, yet devastatingly effective. Meanwhile, Kyle worked the room, navigating alliances with finesse. He approached potential partners, dropped hints of his plans, and subtly reminded everyone why he was a force to be reckoned with. His charm was undeniable, but beneath it was the calculating mind of a man determined to prove himself. As the night progressed, the tension between Audra and her adversaries reached a boiling point. One rival, confident in their position, made a dismissive comment about her recent setbacks. Audra smiled politely, masking the storm brewing beneath the surface. With a calm demeanor, she excused herself and made her way to a private corner. There, she revealed her evidence, carefully curated, meticulously detailed, to a select group of influential guests. Gasps and murmurs followed as her revelations spread like wildfire. The impact was immediate. Deals that had seemed secure began to wobble, alliances fractured, and the balance of power shifted. Audra's rivals, caught off guard, struggled to regain composure. In a city where reputation was everything, she had just secured a win, and all without ever raising her voice. Genoa City was electric with tension. Everywhere Audra Charles walked, heads turned, not because she sought attention, but because she carried a storm. A storm that had been quietly brewing for months, fueled by betrayal, miscommunication, and the kind of heartache that left scars invisible to the eye but impossible to ignore. The woman who had once been cautious, careful, and measured was gone. In her place stood a force ready to reclaim her life and teach those who doubted her that Audra Charles was no one's pawn. It all started with Charles's latest maneuver at Newman Enterprises. Kyle Abbott had been scheming, thinking that a few well-timed manipulations could put him ahead, not realizing that Audra had her own moves planned, moves that were calculated with precision and emotional firepower. She wasn't just reacting. She was anticipating, strategizing, and striking with the subtlety of a chess grandmaster and the ruthlessness of a street fighter. Audra had learned early in life that people underestimated her. They saw her warmth, her calm demeanor, and thought her naive. But those same people were about to learn a lesson they would never forget. Her plan wasn't about revenge alone. It was about clarity, about setting the record straight, about reclaiming her narrative. For too long, she had been reactive, letting others' schemes dictate her life. No more. The first step in her resurgence involved Kyle. He had sent her a message, thinly veiled as casual concern, but Audra knew better. She read between the lines with ease. Every sentence, every punctuation mark, screamed entitlement, arrogance, and condescension. Kyle believed he had the upper hand because he had access to Newman Enterprises' inner workings, but he underestimated the quiet intelligence Audra had honed over the years. The truth was, she had been preparing for this moment long before Kyle even realized there was a battle to be fought. Audra's approach was surgical. She didn't storm in yelling accusations. Instead, she let the tension build, allowing Kyle's own insecurities and impulses to unravel him. A misplaced word here, a carefully timed question there. Small provocations designed to expose the cracks in his facade. By the time Kyle realized what was happening, it was too late. Audra had already taken control of the narrative, the power, and the perception of everyone around them. But Kyle wasn't the only one in Audra's sights. The Newman legacy, the tangled web of secrets, lies, and unspoken truths, had left plenty of loose ends. Victor Newman's empire was as much about influence and perception as it was about money, and Audra understood that the key to surviving in Genoa City was to navigate both with equal skill. Her strikes were not reckless. They were precise, targeted, and unstoppable. In the midst of her plan, Audra faced personal dilemmas that threatened to derail her carefully laid strategy. Emotions she had buried for years began resurfacing. Memories of trust betrayed, of love lost, of friendships tested. Yet, she realized that vulnerability was not weakness. It was a weapon when wielded wisely. Audra allowed herself to feel the pain, but she didn't let it control her. Instead, she transformed it into determination, a silent promise that no one would ever diminish her again. Her first public confrontation was during a corporate event at Newman Enterprises. The room was filled with executives, socialites, and key players, all unaware that Audra had turned the evening into a stage for her own comeback. Kyle, naturally confident, attempted to dominate the conversation, presenting proposals and ideas with the air of inevitability. Audra listened, her gaze steady, her posture relaxed but commanding. Then, at just the right moment, she intervened. "Interesting proposal, Kyle," Audra said, her voice calm but carrying an edge that drew attention. "But have you considered the potential consequences for the entire Newman portfolio if we proceed in this direction?" A hush fell over the room. Kyle's confident smile faltered. Audra's words were innocent enough on the surface, but beneath them lay a meticulous critique of his plan, exposing weaknesses he hadn't even noticed. Whispers spread through the room as colleagues began nodding, impressed by Audra's insight. Kyle tried to regain control, but each attempt only highlighted his misjudgment. Audra had not only challenged him, she had reshaped the perception of power dynamics in the room. After the event, Audra didn't celebrate. She retreated to her office, her mind already racing ahead to the next move. In Genoa City, victories were fleeting unless reinforced with consistency and strategy. Her phone buzzed with messages, some from allies, some from those who feared her newfound influence. She ignored the fearful ones and focused on building coalitions, aligning herself with people who shared her vision of clarity and fairness. Meanwhile, outside the corporate arena, Audra's personal life mirrored the intensity of her professional resurgence. Her relationships had been strained by the chaos surrounding Kyle and Newman Enterprises. Trust had been eroded, friendships tested, and hearts bruised. Yet, Audra approached these challenges with the same clarity she applied to business. She confronted old wounds directly, setting boundaries, demanding honesty, and refusing to be a victim. People responded in kind, some with resistance, others with respect. Slowly but surely, Audra reconstructed her personal world with the same precision she applied in the boardroom. As days turned into weeks, the results of Audra's campaign became undeniable. Kyle, humiliated yet grudgingly respectful, began to approach her not with arrogance, but with caution. Newman Enterprises board recognized Audra's strategic brilliance, and whispers of her influence spread beyond the walls of the company. Audra Charles, once underestimated, had become a figure who commanded attention not just for her presence, but for the intellect, resolve, and courage she wielded so effortlessly. Her ultimate strike, however, was yet to come. Audra had learned that true power wasn't about crushing enemies. It was about creating lasting influence and inspiring respect. In a final maneuver, she orchestrated a partnership that not only strengthened Newman Enterprises, but positioned herself as an indispensable leader within the company. Kyle, though smart and ambitious, was forced to acknowledge that Audra was not someone he could outmaneuver. She had become an architect of outcomes, a woman whose every move was measured, intentional, and impactful. By the end of her campaign, Audra stood tall, not just as a survivor of betrayal and miscalculation, but as a visionary in her own right. She had reclaimed her life, her influence, and her voice. In the ever-volatile world of Genoa City, that was no small feat, and as she looked toward the future, she knew one thing for certain. Audra Charles would never be underestimated again. Her strikes were not fueled by anger alone, but by the wisdom born of experience, and that made her unstoppable. Genoa City glimmered through the expansive glass windows of the Newman Abbott Tower, but Kyle Abbott barely noticed. His mind was a storm, thoughts colliding like crashing waves. Today wasn't just any day. Today he was taking a risk so enormous, it could either solidify his place in the family legacy, or destroy it completely. Kyle had always lived under the shadow of the Abbott empire. His father, Jack, commanded respect with an iron fist, his reputation untouchable. His sister, Ashley, was a stalwart pillar of morality and determination. And then there was Adam, his half-brother, whose mere presence was a tempest in the lives of everyone in Genoa City. Kyle had spent years watching from the sidelines, meticulously studying the chessboard that was his family's empire. But now he was stepping into the arena. It all started with the Glissade merger. Kyle had been working tirelessly behind the scenes, negotiating deals, smoothing over tensions between partners, and attempting to turn the project into a goldmine. But something had shifted. Victor Newman's sudden interference had thrown a wrench in every carefully laid plan. Victor, with his piercing gaze and his uncanny ability to sniff out weakness, had made it clear that he intended to assert his dominance over Kyle's project. Kyle knew that playing it safe wasn't an option. If he didn't act, Glissade would be his first, and possibly last, opportunity to prove he belonged. And so he concocted a plan, one that walked the fine line between genius and recklessness. He arranged a private meeting with Victoria Newman, the woman whose intellect and influence rivaled any of the city's power players. He knew he could leverage her desire to keep Victor in check while gaining an ally he desperately needed. As he waited in the sleek conference room, his palms were clammy despite the crisp air conditioning. The door opened and Victoria entered, her presence commanding, her gaze piercing. "Kyle," she said, her tone polite yet edged with suspicion. "I hear you have an idea." Kyle took a deep breath. "Victoria, I do. But it's risky. If it works, it could change the game for both of us. If it fails, well, let's just say it won't end well for anyone." Victoria raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "Risky moves aren't your style, Kyle. What's driving this?" "Glissade," he said simply. "It's our chance to build something new, something that isn't under Victor's thumb. But I can't do it alone. I need your backing, your influence. And I need you to trust me." For a moment, the room was silent. Kyle could feel the weight of her scrutiny, the silent calculation in her eyes. Then slowly she nodded. "All right, I'm in. But understand this, Kyle. If this fails, there's no safety net." Kyle smiled, the tension easing just slightly. "I don't plan on failing." The next phase of his risky move required more than alliances. It required deception, cunning, and the perfect timing. He needed to subtly undermine Victor without making it obvious, a feat that would require navigating treacherous waters. He enlisted Phyllis Summers, who had her own complicated history with both the Newman and Abbott families. With her charm and insider knowledge, she became his secret weapon, feeding him information that would give him the edge he needed. Meanwhile, the clock was ticking. Every day that Glissade remained in limbo, Victor's influence grew. Kyle worked late into the night, poring over contracts, crafting contingencies, and rehearsing conversations that could make or break his plan. His stress was compounded by his personal life. Sophia had been distant, frustrated by his obsession with work, and their recent argument had left him emotionally raw. He knew that this gamble could cost him more than just business. It could cost him his relationships, too. Then came the day of the launch presentation. The day Kyle's risky move would either pay off or implode spectacularly. The boardroom was packed, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. Victor was present, of course, his eyes scanning the room with predatory precision. Kyle's heart pounded in his chest, but he maintained his composure, projecting confidence even as adrenaline surged through his veins. He began his presentation, laying out the financial projections, the innovative marketing strategies, and the growth potential. Each slide was meticulously crafted, each word carefully chosen. As he spoke, he could see the subtle shifts in the room. The nods, the whispers, the glances exchanged between board members. He knew he had them. Then he executed the final part of his plan, the part that was truly risky. He revealed a confidential report that painted Victor's handling of a previous project in a less than flattering light. The room gasped. Victor's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening. Kyle pressed on, calmly demonstrating how his leadership could avoid past mistakes and maximize profit. It was a gamble, showing that much vulnerability while directly challenging Victor's record. But Kyle had anticipated the reaction and had prepared meticulously, ensuring that the data was indisputable and the strategy undeniable. When he finished, the room was silent. Then, slowly, one by one, the board members began to speak, expressing support for his plan, recognizing the potential, and praising his foresight. Victor's gaze lingered on Kyle, a mixture of admiration, frustration, and calculation. He wasn't defeated, but he hadn't won either. As the meeting adjourned, Victoria approached, her expression a mixture of relief and approval. "Kyle, that was impressive. I knew you had it in you." Kyle exhaled, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. It wasn't easy, but sometimes the biggest risks are worth taking. Yet Kyle knew this was only the beginning. Victor was nothing if not relentless, and this victory, while significant, would only make him more vigilant. The risk he had taken today could very well ignite a new level of rivalry, one that could threaten everything he had worked for. But for now, Kyle allowed himself a moment of triumph. He had stepped out of the shadows, claimed his space, and proven that he was capable of bold moves. In the dangerous game of power, influence, and legacy that was Genoa City, he had just made a statement. Kyle Abbott was no longer content to watch from the sidelines. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that taking risks, calculated, daring, and audacious, was exactly what it would take to survive, thrive, and ultimately to shape his own destiny. Because in the world of the Abbotts and Newmans, the only certainty was that nothing was certain. And Kyle Abbott had just thrown the dice. A steady pulse of activity that seemed both familiar and alien as Lily Winters walked through the glass doors of Newman Enterprises. The lobby was bustling with the usual mix of executives, assistants, and the occasional visitor who appeared lost in the maze of polished marble floors and glossy walls. Yet despite the life teeming around her, Lily felt detached, almost suspended in a private bubble of reflection. She had come to this office countless times for work, for meetings, for confrontation, but today she came for none of those reasons. Today it was just her and the tangled mess of her emotions, staring back at her like a reflection in a funhouse mirror. Lily leaned against the cold metal railing of the mezzanine and let her gaze drift toward the city skyline. The sun had begun its slow descent, spilling streaks of amber and rose across the horizon. It should have been beautiful, peaceful even, but Lily felt anything but. Her mind was a whirlwind, cycling through thoughts she wasn't sure she wanted to confront. She thought of him first, Kyle Abbott. The memory of their last encounter lingered in her chest, a mix of warmth and tension that refused to be dismissed. Kyle had always been unpredictable, a combination of charm, impulsiveness, and a stubborn streak that could make anyone's head spin. And yet, beneath all of that, there was a sincerity that Lily had sometimes doubted, only to be proven wrong when he surprised her. But now she wasn't sure what to make of him. His sudden gestures of affection, the way he had sought her out at the most unexpected times, it left her disoriented. She wasn't naive, she knew his intentions weren't always straightforward, but still, she found herself hoping. Hoping for clarity, hoping for connection, hoping for something she couldn't yet name. And then there was Billy. Oh, Billy. He had been a constant in her life for so long that it was easy to forget the complexity he carried, the layers of his personality that alternately soothed and agitated her. Their history was tangled, marked by both passion and frustration. Lily had always admired his ambition, his ability to command a room and yet, when it mattered, to show a softness that few could see. But lately that softness felt like a stranger. There had been moments where she questioned whether she had misread him all these years, or if the man she thought she knew had changed, or worse, had always been more elusive than she wanted to admit. Lily sighed, her shoulders heavy with the weight of indecision. She wandered over to a nearby window, pressing her hands against the glass as if the city outside could offer some guidance. But the streets below were indifferent, filled with people chasing their own ambitions, unaware of the storms raging inside her. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, jolting her from the spiral of her thoughts. She pulled it out to see a message from Victoria, terse and efficient as always. Need your input on the project. ASAP. Lily stared at it for a long moment, debating whether to respond. Work had always been a refuge, a place where she could immerse herself in spreadsheets and meetings and deadlines instead of emotions that refused to be tamed. But today, even the familiar rhythm of work felt hollow. Instead, she slipped the phone back into her pocket and sank onto the edge of a leather couch in the lounge. She closed her eyes, trying to trace the source of the unease that had been gnawing at her all week. It wasn't jealousy, at least not exactly. It was more like uncertainty, a fear that she was losing herself in trying to navigate the feelings of others, that she was sacrificing her own clarity in a quest to make sense of a world that refused to make sense. Lily thought about her friends, too, those who had tried to offer guidance and reassurance. Amanda had called earlier, her voice bright and knowing, teasing Lily for the classic dilemma she found herself in. "You're overthinking it," Amanda had said, but Lily knew better. She always overthought, dissected every word, every glance, every pause. It was part of who she was, part of what made her both sharp and cautious. A knock on the lounge door pulled her from her reverie. "Lily," came a familiar voice. It was Kane, his expression a mix of curiosity and concern. "You okay? You've been avoiding everyone today." Lily offered a small smile, appreciating the concern even as she felt too tangled in her thoughts to answer fully. "I'm thinking," she said finally. "Just thinking." Kane nodded slowly, as if he understood completely. And maybe he did. He had always had a way of seeing people clearly, of cutting past the superficial and getting to the heart of the matter. Lily wondered, not for the first time, if that clarity was something she envied or feared. "I get it," he said, stepping closer. "Sometimes you need space to figure things out. But don't forget, you don't have to figure it all out alone." Those words lingered with her long after Kane left. Alone, yes, but not entirely. There was a network of people who cared, who watched out for her, who believed in her judgment even when she doubted it herself. And yet, the heart wants what it wants, doesn't it? It doesn't care about logic or timing or practicality. Lily leaned back and let herself close her eyes again. She pictured Kyle's smile, the way his eyes lit up when he was genuinely happy. And then Billy's quiet strength, the way he seemed to carry so much yet never let it crush him entirely. The contrast between them was stark, yet the truth was, both had a place in her thoughts, a presence she couldn't ignore. Her mind wandered further, tracing possibilities and what-ifs like delicate threads. What if she chose Kyle and it didn't work out? What if she chose Billy and discovered she had missed something essential with Kyle? Or what if the real answer wasn't about choosing at all, but about understanding herself first, figuring out what she truly wanted before letting anyone else in? The sky outside had darkened, the last streaks of sunset giving way to twilight. Lily felt a shift within her, a subtle but undeniable sense of resolve. Perhaps she didn't need to have all the answers tonight. Perhaps it was enough to acknowledge her feelings, to sit with them, to let them guide her rather than dictate her every move. Standing, Lily straightened her shoulders and took a deep breath. The city lights flickered on, reflecting in her eyes as she felt a quiet determination settle over her. She wasn't ready to make any grand declarations, and she certainly wasn't ready to act impulsively. But she was ready to listen, to herself, to her heart, and to the subtle truths that had been whispering all along. Whatever came next, with Kyle, with Billy, or with the unexpected twists life had yet to reveal, Lily knew she would meet it with clarity, courage, and most importantly, honesty. She had spent too long worrying about the expectations of others. Now it was time to honor her own. And as she stepped away from the window and back into the bustling energy of Newman Enterprises, Lily Winters felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. A quiet, unshakable sense of self, ready to face whatever and whoever came next.